Hey, you say what now?
I was talking about this car wash line is crazy.
Mm.
Can you get that package from out front?
Yeah.
Aren't you asleep?
No, I'm in the studio. Well, I already got a package that came for you earlier. You got something
Huh?
else? I already got a package for you earlier. You got something else?
From Bath and Body Works?
I don't know where it came from. Um,
Was it around like 2 or 3 o'clock?
no. It was before that, I think. It was probably before you left.
I mean, turn the corner. What are you doing, jackass? Okay. Well, I guess it's from Bath and Body Works then. Unless
I
it's
don't
from
know.
another place.
I'll go check and see if something else out there though.
Yeah, just make sure nothing's out there. I don't want
I
no
thought
explosive
I
shit.
I thought you was getting some more stuff for your job.
I don't know if I am. I think that's everything, but I haven't opened everything up yet.
All right, I'll go
So
see
I'm
real
pretty
quick.
sure they sent everything. But yeah, there should be 2 different boxes coming from Bath and Body Works. That's why I said they sent in like 2 separate packages. So I don't know if you got one earlier and they delivered another one or what.
All right,
But I'm on my way home, so I'll see you in like 20 minutes.
all right.
All right, bye.
Shit. Oh, why is this harder than it? It seems like it's been harder than it has to be. Yo, I said I missed your car earlier, bro.
Yeah, I just called you. Talk about how good that plate looks.
Oh boy, that breakfast be slamming, man. Hey, most important meal of the day, man.
Well, I be sitting there like, man, why you have such a plate? I'm like, why Trav got all these strawberries and cherries in the frying pan and he ain't eating none of it? Like, he is capping.
This motherfucker is tripping. Motherfucker say he fried cherries. What the fuck? Yeah, man. I got my girl on a good little routine, man. I tell her shit, man. Hey, I don't mind washing dishes and clean up the kitchen as long as you cook, man. So she been trying to little chef it up. Mm-hmm. Shit,
Tell her
what?
she start making gravy.
You said what now?
Tell her she start making grits and gravy. She in the game.
She can get the grits now. She got the grits. She got the grits. Well, she ain't never liked them shit. So I told her to start cooking them shit. She was like, man, I like grits too. I ain't gotta have like pancakes and eggs and all that shit every damn morning. Man, give me some fish and grits, nigga.
I ain't lying. That's what I had yesterday.
Wow,
Salmon and grits.
that's one of the best breakfasts ever. And she don't like the salmon and grits, bro. But she'll cook it for me.
All you gotta do is buy some long jaws. Fry all that shit up. Ain't nothing like a meat plate.
I gotta get her used to more southern cooking. Like she cooked some turkey necks last night. I always gotta cook it, cause she won't eat the shit. But she cooked it.
Yeah, that's dope, man. I know that joint look good.
What you got going on today?
Still here tinkering with this deck.
Yo, man, you've been doing some work lately, bro.
I just been, I'm a post officer.
Mm-hmm.
I be doing stuff. I kick my posting up and wanted to make sure we stay busy over there.
Mm-hmm. And your crew be goddamn knocking out some good ass looking work, bro.
Yes, we leveling up.
Oh shit. I can't wait till I get you do my damn house down
See what we doing.
there. My girl, she don't like it up there at all, man. These long ass, cold ass winters and shit, bro. I'm kinda done with this shit my damn self, bro.
Oh yeah. That joke was so funny. Yeah, put that video up. We was cooking on the grill all the damn summer.
The snow's still in the background, bro. There's a little bit of that shit still out there. And then they talking about next week you're gonna be back down to like 10 degrees. I'm like, come on, man. That shit be lasting too long. But I don't know. Maybe 1 or 2 more years, man. If I can just find hmm? Oh,
My bad. What you? I'm listening to you. I just tell my man something.
oh yeah. That shit, like 1 or 2 more years, I'm trying to be back home. I just gotta figure out like how I'm gonna make the transition.
That'll be good. How to chop it up, boy.
Yeah, bro, cause this shit up here is I'm about burnt out on this shit up here, bro. Well, oh y'all on you on a job site right now, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, bro. I ain't go with job. I just called the other day just to hear your voice, see what the hell you was doing, man. You know what I'm saying?
That's all right, man. We got to do that more often, man.
Yeah, yeah. That shit, goddamn. Go ahead, do your thing, man. Get that bag, boy.
I'll holler at you, man.
All right, man.
Oh, okay, wait. So look at this. This is Lucifer. Way too much to handle. I would be willing to go straight to hell for that. Anyway, this is way too much for me to handle for a short period of time. So there's so many.
All right.
So let's talk about Sifu and making the game a little bit easier, because there's been a huge debate about this game's difficulty level, which, you know, I can see from both sides. But I played this game today on stream for the first couple of hours, raged a lot. I'm going to have a compilation coming up soon. But I want to talk about specific ways that you could just make the game a little bit easier, and just think about how you're engaging in fights, because it's quite obvious that a lot of people just jump in and try to fight and attack and punch, and that can, you know, lead to your demise quite quickly. So if this video helps, please hit that like button. It helps me out more than you realise. Leave a comment down below, tell me what you're thinking about this game. Subscribe, hit the little notification bell, go into the video description, see my social media, and follow me on all of those. I would be grateful. Thank you very much. Let's move in to the game. Now, first and foremost, the biggest thing about this game is unlocking skills. Now, there's two ways to do it. As you're running through, you will gain XP. XP will allow you to pick a perk when you get to dragon areas, or when you die you can switch to the screen and unlock a skill. This could be like kicking things across the floor to trip people over. It could be focus moves. You can unlock the skill. However, what you want to do is figure out a skill that you're pretty adept with, something that you really like, really enjoy, that makes the game a little bit easier for you. Once you unlock it, if it costs 1000 XP or 500 XP, you can then permanently unlock the skill, so that no matter how many times you restart the game, that skill will always be accessible to you. How you do this is, once you have gone and ran through a level and you get enough XP, you get like a little dragon, unlock the one you want, and then don't spend your XP on anything at all again until you get enough to once again spend the same amount of XP on that skill you already have. Once you do this 5 times, this will then unlock permanently for you. The ways you can do it is when you die, when you get to a dragon statue, but also once you complete the level and you go back to your home base, if you walk through to where the tree is, you can spend your XP there too. The great thing about this is the skill's already unlocked when you get to the tree, so you can just spend all the XP on the permanent unlock option. I do want to say though, if you do level 1 and then you get to level 2, I believe that you will have to unlock the skill again for the first time. So when you get into level 2, even if you have 3 permanent unlocks left, you have to unlock it once first for that game playthrough of that level, and then after that, any XP you get, you can further unlock the skill. So if you want to make it a little bit easier for yourself, run the first level over and over and over again until you get some of the permanent unlocks that you want and need to make the game easier for you. Running the same level over and over again also helps you with timing and just learning how enemies move and kind of patterns and stuff, and just kind of put that muscle memory into your hands of how to play this game. And upon doing so, when you have these permanent unlocks, whenever you run the game again, you don't have to waste your XP on those unlocks, so you can try out other skills and other abilities. This is a roguelike game. I don't know whether it's actually marketed like that, but it is. The more you play it, the more you permanently unlock, the easier that it gets. It's still going to be ridiculously hard because of just random things that might happen, like a guy jumps 50 foot across the map and hits you with a stick. Things like that are going to happen. That's the enjoyment of a roguelike, enjoyment, but you know what I mean. Next, using parry and avoiding. So for avoiding, you can either dodge right, left, or back, or through the person if you're brave enough. I have found that avoiding away from an enemy is just the most consistent way not to get caught with a random hit, because I always seem to dodge at the right time, but because of where I'm positioned, or I'm moving like slightly into their kind of path of where they're throwing their punch or where they're throwing their weapon, I get caught very briefly, and a lot of those attacks as well can stun you, and then you just get absolutely beat down by everyone in the room. So I like to avoid away from the enemy. It also gives me kind of a distance between them, so once they finish their patterned move, so let's say they do 3 attacks, I know that as that 3rd attack's coming, I could judge the space, dodge inwards and get in a combo and get out. And kind of the idea of this game is not just to get in and beat the living crap out of people, it's to kind of play hit and move. So you jump in, do a little combo, jump out, jump in, do a little combo, jump out, maybe switch to a different enemy, hit that enemy, dodge out. That's the way I play it anyway. Now, parrying is a tough one. Parrying is very, very useful to build stagger gauge on an enemy, and when the stagger gauge comes, you obviously can hit the 2 buttons together and immediately finish off the enemy. Very, very useful. So when you parry, you leave them open to do a little couple of punches and maybe go on into a combo, but you get a big boost in their stagger bar. I can't remember what it's called in this game, but it is basically stagger bar. The problem with this is parrying is extremely precise and very unforgiving. If you go for the parry where basically you hit the block button as the move is coming in, you have to be, I'm pretty sure it's almost frame perfect. They really need to kind of adjust the parry system to be a little bit more forgiving. But if you do get that parry, then you get the ability to get in a couple of hits. But if you miss that parry, you're going to get comboed a lot, which means you lose a lot of health, and then you're screwed for the rest of the game. And speaking of the double button move, it's called a takedown. Now, takedowns are very, very useful because you get a decent sized chunk of health after you take someone down. So your aim in this game is to get the yellow bar up, and then as soon as you see that stagger hit, just whack a takedown on them and get a lot of health back. And if you do this with multiple people in the room, you're going to get a sizable chunk of your health back if you're struggling in that current room or mission or area. The best way to get health back is to do takedowns. And I think probably one of the most important tips I'll say is try to have a weapon on you as often as possible. And as well, once you are familiar with specific levels, like say you go back to the first level because you want to end it at a younger age, look for the enemies that have weapons, specifically bottles, because bottles can be thrown at you from off screen and you die. So once you know who the enemy is who spawns with that or is close to a grab on a bottle, rush that person first and kill them before they get that bottle off and start to attack you. Also, if you beat them to the bottle, then you get to use the bottle to throw at someone or smack someone in the face. Weapons like staffs and iron bars and stuff like that, you know, the big meaty weapons that you can do a lot of damage with, are also very good for blocking other weapons. There's a boss at the end of the first level who uses basically a machete knife, and he does a lot of damage when he hits you, but if you run around and pick up the bamboo sticks, you can block it with relative ease, apart from like the unblockable attacks obviously, and do some damage back to him. The bosses are very, 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 very difficult in this game, so really don't freak out if you're struggling with them. They're very, very difficult. However, if there's any weapons in the room, it's going to make them a little bit easier. And I think, last but not least, I'll just say, consider playing stealthy in some areas. There's a whole bunch of enemies around. You can pick off 1 or 2 of them before the fight even begins by just being stealthy. Now, if you run up to them and hit them, you will immediately put them into stun, which means you can immediately kill them. There's a few enemies that might spawn with a weapon who will have your back to you or in a specific room that you can get to before everyone else sees you, that you could just run in, hit them and take them out completely, pick up their weapon, and it gives you a huge advantage against the rest of the room. So make sure you look to play stealthy as well. I will say the last little kind of tip that I would say is try to keep your back away from the large amount of enemies. Like, don't let them get behind you, don't let them get to the side of you. Keep them all relatively in front of you. Use your pillars, use your walls, use your mounted areas that you can jump over to escape if you need to. But if you get surrounded by these enemies, you are going to have a very, very hard time, because even if you're a god at parrying and blocking, if 2 enemies attack at the same time, you are going to get hit pretty badly. And that's about it, really. Just this game requires patience. Let's just put it that way. It's not easy. It's very, very hard, especially at the start. But the more you play it, the more you get that muscle memory down for parrying and blocking and avoiding. It's going to get a little bit easier as you keep on going and going and going. And obviously you unlock skills and permanently unlock skills. So keep it up, keep going, keep focused. It's a very, very stressful game, but it's a very fun game I have found. And I'm going to do a little bit of a review on the game coming up soon. But I hope these tips helped. Again, like, button, comment, subscribe, social medias, all that stuff. Thank you for watching. I've been easy. You guys have been awesome.
I gotta know who oven baked my bacon. Who did it? Tyler. Come on over here, man.
Oh, wow. Ow. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's.
with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. And as usual, it's me, Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about Sifu. This game is something else. It's for PS5 and PS4 and PC, and it's been on our radar since it was first revealed. Now, what seemed like a simple and stylish brawler kung fu game is actually something even cooler and more challenging and involved than you'd expect. If you're willing to put some time in and don't mind grinding to absolute perfectionism, you have a friggin' absolute thrill ride of a game here, man. At the risk of sounding like probably every other review or person out there, it's definitely not for everyone, but it really is not for everyone. But it's still intriguing. I'll explain why as we go. And just so you know, we've been playing a review copy of the game for about a week now, and all of my footage here is captured on PS5 and is spoiler-free. Now, Sifu is a story-light revenge tale. As a young boy or girl, you get to choose, which is pretty cool, you witness a family member murdered, and then you train and grow up and set out to kill each member of the group that did it. Now, the game is structured pretty much into 5 lengthy levels with a boss at the end. That might not sound like a lot, but believe me, I think unless you're an absolute god at video games and this clicks immediately for you, then you're going to be spending double-digit hours in this game. Now, it takes a second to explain it all, but it's interesting and worth it. So, you go through each tightly, nicely designed level, engaging in the combat, which is extremely challenging. But if you die, you pretty much instantly come back, but a year older. Now, keep getting your ass kicked, and you keep coming back older and older as the years stack due to certain parameters. So, as you get older, you obviously look older, but you also have less health, and you hit a bit harder, because, life experience and stuff. Once you get too old and die in your 70s, it's game over, man. As you progress through the levels, you're able to, use points to unlock new move skills. Unlock them multiple times, and then you lock them in. Now, the main move set is totally fine and good, but some of these extra special moves are really useful, especially for, very specific use cases. Many of them are, kind of harder to pull off, but sometimes worth it. And as you age, you potentially actually lose access to trying to unlock some of these. They actually get blocked out. Now, I guess that's the game saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, which, if you think about it, is really clever. You can also find little statues that you can spend points like XP to unlock stuff, like stronger weapon use, more block meter, stuff like that. Now, if you complete a level, you unlock and start the next level at the age you were at the end of the previous level. So, you're only ever as good as your last best playthrough. If you don't want to start a level as a 60-year-old man who can die in a few hits and get game over after just a few encounters, you're going to want to go back and replay previous levels and really, really replay them over and over again and master them so you can finish it as a younger man or woman and start the next level as a younger man or woman way better off. And, really master them. The levels are nicely designed and cool and varied, but not procedurally generated. They're always the same, but always difficult with, these unpredictable enemies. So you're going to be replaying and grinding out bosses a lot, hoping to come out on top in better shape for your progression forward. Now, it gets a little better because careful examination will unlock some shortcuts upon multiple playthroughs throughout the different levels. It's actually pretty creative how they implement that stuff, but it really only temporarily helps make things a little easier on you because you're still going to end up just venturing your way to the end of the level and getting your ass beat again and again by a specific boss or a character or whatever. I'll get more of that type of thing in a little bit, but the actual combat itself, the sweet, sweet bread and butter of this game, it's so good. I love the combat. It's challenging and it's demanding where even the lowliest enemy can mess you up in a few hits, but you have a good set of tools at your disposal. You have light attacks, heavy attacks, a trip maneuver, a kind of push maneuver, a bit of a throw, and items and weapons you pick up in the environment. You also have a meter that you can burn to do special attacks that you'll unlock that are usually unblockable, which is nice. Now, on the defensive side, which is really the bigger thing, you can block and parry. There's a dodge that's really only good for specific moments, and also the ability to weave kind of dodge
high and low. Each of these things has specific use cases. Now, of course, you have a block meter that enemies are trying to erode, but the enemies themselves also have them, so you're trying to wear theirs down, and then you can do sick-ass finishers on enemies. So these work great for also avoiding attacks and other incoming enemies because they act kind of like a cancel. Now, it may look on screen like enemies are just attacking one by one, but actually, most of the time, if your positioning is bad, they'll all try to pound on you at once. So you're constantly trying to bob and weave and block and parry dudes and try to continue to chain counter finisher to finisher to finisher. Now, it's really like a lot of challenging games, so there are a few enemies that just feel kind of like total bullshit until you crack the code. Like, until you figure out exactly how to defend against them, they'll just spam blast you until you learn the ropes, including some of the bosses. Now, it is an incredibly rewarding combat system that always feels badass and satisfying. You know, the feedback is great, especially with the DualSense controller features, and it just makes you feel cool. Not to mention, a lot of the fighting sound effects are absolutely perfect. The game has tons of amazing encounters, from wiping out clubs or drug dens almost like John Wick style with your fists, to really special old boy style hallway moments that kind of change the camera's perspective. Even when you're getting your ass beat, the game is just so impressive. The only thing that can be god-awful is the camera itself. The camera's gonna screw you over a lot. It can be frustrating. I noticed it especially during a boss battle or two where it would just unacceptably obscure my vision for a very key, crucial second. Or in certain fights where characters can do flying jump kicks from off screen. It's such a bummer for sure. And there are some settings in the options menus, but it's just, I really hope they can clean this up with an update, because otherwise, I think the gameplay is near perfect, at least for me personally. Just satisfying ass-kicking that I was really hoping for with this game. Now, the levels and the moments are so cool, and each and every individual one is so memorable that I enjoyed endlessly replaying these levels, even if it can be painful. Now, some folks out there listening might not find that much fun, and I totally understand. It's valid. There are other games where I don't want to endlessly grind the same level just to get better. I want new experiences. But here in Sifu, I just love the combat and the insanity and the really cool cinematic style that I just kept going. I kept grinding because I wanted to see what was next. Every single room in every single level is completely different. There's always some new creative spin, whether it's something inspired by an old kung fu movie or an action movie or just something you've never seen before. There's always a new thing to see and do. There's always a new type of object to pick up and throw at a person's head. There's always a new way to completely get demolished and bulldozed by enemies. It's just consistently entertaining, even if you're a rage quitter like me. I think the aging loop and the combat mechanics and the tight level design is strong enough to justify the way the game is stretched out over the 5 levels, but hey, not everyone will agree. Just know what you're getting into here. The way I explained it, you might be like, oh, no way, that's not for me. Or you might be like, hell yes, let's go. Or you might be in between, like where I kind of was. I was excited for this game, but I was not really looking forward to the painful difficulty to see it through. But because everything about it was so solid top to bottom, I learned to persevere and absolutely love it. I think Sifu is an incredibly special game, and I know it's early, I know it's only February, but I think you're going to see this on some people's 2020 Game of the Year lists. It's going to be a busy year, and there's a lot more, so I know I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but I'm just trying to get across to you guys just how much I really like this one. But of course, that's a before you buy. You know how this goes by now, right? I give you some pros and some cons and some personal opinion, and now I want to hear yours down in the comments. I don't really think maybe you've played a game like this before, but if you can think of something that's kind of like this, definitely let me know. There's lots of elements of other games here and there in it, but it's really unique, so I'd like to know what you think of it if you jumped in. The game did kind of go live a little bit early for some folks, so if you've been getting your hands dirty in this thing, definitely let me know what you think, whether you've been playing as a male or a female, what some of your favorite unlockable moves are, maybe some of your favorite encounters early in the game. Try and keep it spoiler free. I didn't want to show anything too late here, but let's talk about anything Sifu, or really any cool action combat fighting games down in the comments, man. Now, if you enjoyed this video and maybe found it a little bit helpful and informative, all you gotta do is click the like button. We always say it, but we always really do appreciate it, and it does help us out. We'll be down in the comments, but of course, if you want to yell at me directly, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jake Baldino, or on my personal YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jake Baldino. But Thank you guys for being here. Subscribe if you're new because we put out videos every single day. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
The winner becomes a king, and the loser a thief.
How many trials do I have left before we can show?
2 more challenges lay ahead.
There's so much going on in a Rockstar game. These giant, insane worlds filled with so much. It makes it easy to miss the small stuff. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, 20 insane little details in Rockstar games. Starting off at number 20, in Grand Theft Auto 4, the helicopter can blow water around. Rockstar really went nuts with the physics effects in Grand Theft Auto 4, and while most of it's really noticeable and flashy, like when you're shooting or knocking people over, there's also effects that are really easy to overlook. Like, in most games, we're used to helicopters causing some kind of turbulence effect on water, but this game took it to the next level, and actually made it so if you fly a helicopter low enough, it causes water to deform from the force of the helicopter blades. It's interesting because a lot of the physics stuff from Grand Theft Auto 4 really wasn't continued in Grand Theft Auto 5, but this one they actually beefed up in 5, and it's more impressive there. Moving on to number 19 in Grand Theft Auto 5, when characters hate being followed and they'll attack you if you follow them around too much. Now GTA 5 has some really amazing little details in it. One of the best additions is the character swapping mechanic and some of the really funny stuff you can do with it. Like, if you manage to spot another playable character walking around San Andreas, like say you're Trevor and you see Michael or Franklin or whatever, you can follow them. And depending on which person you follow, you'll get some unique dialogue where they complain about what you're doing.
Hey, Mike, you stalking me or what?
And if you continue to follow them long enough, they'll get sick of you and knock you out. It actually begs the question why more people who aren't playable characters don't get annoyed with you following them around. And number 18 in Red Dead Redemption 2, if you try to rob people while you're drunk, they don't take you seriously. Of course, when it comes to little details, nothing can really beat RDR2, but just like with the old GTA games, we've covered them in depth in a lot of other videos. Because, I mean, there's only 2 RDR games, whereas we're going on the 6th GTA at this point, and that's not counting any of the side games. So we're basically going to only try to mention a few times in this video. There's a lot of funny little details about getting drunk in RDR2. Of course, there's the fact that people laugh at you when you try to stick them up when you're drunk, but there's more to it. When you're drunk in RDR2, the HUD elements, like the text on the screen, will actually be misspelled. And if you manage to anger the law and then get blackout drunk, that doesn't save you, because you just don't see the police picking you up and dumping you in prison. That's where you wake up. And number 17, in Bully, if you don't have any money, instead of buying a soda from a vending machine, you just kick it. This is a cool thing I didn't really realize you could do in this underrated game from Rockstar Vancouver. One way to heal yourself is to buy a soda from a vending machine around the school, but if you're out of cash, you could just kick the machine instead. It's a funny little detail by itself, but if you kick it enough times, you usually shake a soda free. It's not the most efficient way to get some health back, but it's crazy they made it so something would actually happen if you kick the machine enough. And number 16 in GTA 4, the car wash has changed depending on the type of car. There's car washes dotted around Liberty City, and I'm guessing most people don't bother because they do exactly what they say they do. They just wash your car. That's the only thing they do. The only reason to go into a car wash in this game is if your car is dirty and you want it washed. The fact they're in the game at all is kind of an impressive detail because they're utterly unnecessary. But to make it even more insane, they made it so your car would get washed differently depending on if it's a convertible or not. Like, you drive a car with a hard top in, and you just go through the automated washing machine exactly like you would expect. But if you're driving a convertible, you get a hand washing animation. It's just a bunch of really unnecessary detail that paradoxically is super necessary to creating a more real feeling world. And number 15 in GTA San Andreas, if you park a taxi in enemy territory during taxi missions, then rival gang members start messing up your vehicle. And this is pretty specific. Normally other gangs don't really hassle you a whole lot in San Andreas, but if you're trying to do a taxi job, they can make your life pretty difficult. While you're on a mission, if you park a taxi in an enemy gang's neighborhood, they'll come out and start smashing up your car as long as you sit there. It's kind of hilarious to watch, but also a pain if you're actually trying to make some money. At number 14, RDR's raindrops gathering on the screen only when you look up. This is a really specific thing that you may not notice or realize happens. In a lot of games, if it rains, you get raindrops on your screen no matter what happens. But in the original Red Dead Redemption, the simulation's a little more realistic. Instead of always getting raindrops on the screen, it only happens when you tilt the screen up. And if you look down, the raindrops eventually evaporate. It just sells it way better than non-directional rain droplets. And number 13, in Grand Theft Auto 5, when you wear tinted glasses, it changes the first-person view. Being able to view the world in first person is a great addition to GTA 5, and this one detail that Rockstar put in is kind of wild. If you change your costume to include tinted shades, if you go into first person, your vision will be tinted in the same way that those glasses are intended to. They also made it so that your character eventually adjusts to the light, so the color starts to slowly fade until it goes back to normal. This is an impressive detail that's also nice to players who don't want to look at the world through a color filter in first person if they don't want to. It just takes a while to adjust, so it's possible a lot of people did not realize that the effect would eventually go away. And number 12, in Max Payne 3, Max's clothes eventually get covered in sweat. Before anyone complains, yes, Max Payne 3 is a Rockstar game. It was developed by Rockstar Studios, unlike the first two games, which were developed by Remedy and published by Rockstar. The game is absolutely filled with amazing little details. One of the craziest is how in certain levels, Max's clothes gradually get sweatier and sweatier the longer you play in them. It's actually a detail that happens in Grand Theft Auto 5 as well, but it's a lot more realistic looking in Max Payne 3. And number 11, in GTA San Andreas, in water, air bubbles come out of the car exhaust instead of smoke. We've talked about a lot of really memorable details in San Andreas, so we haven't really been dwelling too much on these older games. But one we missed out on is when you submerge a car in water, it changes the exhaust. Normally it's smoke, but in underwater, you get bubbles instead. It's a small, but a really crazy detail to include in a game that's as old as San Andreas, and it's not really one that you would think developers would even really think of. And number 10, in Grand Theft Auto 4, tires deflate slowly when they're shot. It's another really cool detail in GTA 4. If you shoot a bullet hole in them, then the air drains out slowly rather than instantly like in most games. It also realistically models the bullet hole in the tire. You can see the smoke move around as the tire spins. It's just really small details that are easy to miss, but they add up to a level of realism in GTA 4 that felt next gen back when it first came out. And number 9, in Bully, the teacher reacts if you spell out a swear word for the assignment. Now, Bully was actually, interestingly enough, considering all of the pushback it got, a more kid-friendly experience to how crude and violent the Grand Theft Auto series is. But that doesn't mean it was totally free of cussing. If you want to cause some trouble, you could get into the English class activity, where you have to make as many words as possible with a set of letters, and sometimes you can spell out certain swears, and the teacher, well, doesn't love it. You don't actually get credit for spelling swears out either. Regardless, it's funny. And number 8, in GTA 5, helicopter blades actually affect the environment. We mentioned the water effect. Even though it may not be quite as impressive in this game, it's perhaps a little more realistic. There's still some really impressive effects, though, that you can see while flying on a helicopter. One of the most insane little things you can see is if you fly a helicopter's blades into a tree, it'll start shooting out leaves like it's chopping branches. That's not the only thing to get blown around by a helicopter either. If you choose to fly close to a sailing ship, the sails will get blown around realistically depending on where your helicopter is. You can even change the direction of a windsock by positioning your helicopter next to one. Like, it's a real attention to detail. At number 7, you can put firecrackers in the toilet, and sometimes you'll see a turd fly out. Putting firecrackers in a school toilet is a classic prank, so there's not really anything surprising about being able to do it in this game. But sometimes, just to be extra gross, when you detonate a firecracker down a toilet, sometimes a poo will come flying out along with toilet water. It's a disgusting little detail that doesn't come up a lot, it's rare, so it's kind of a shock the first time you see it, especially if you're not expecting it, but it's hilarious. And number 6 in RDR2, if you hold a stick of lit dynamite too long, Arthur just puts it out. Again, we said we're trying to avoid mentioning RDR too much in here, but there's one detail that I never really thought about until we were working on this one. When you pull out a stick of dynamite to throw, Arthur automatically lights it. And if you think about it, it's a video game. It seems like it would just stay lit forever, but it's Rockstar, and of course it's more detailed than that. So if you hold a lit stick of dynamite for long enough, instead of letting it explode, Arthur will just extinguish the fuse first. As well he should. At number 5 in Bully, you can start a food fight in the cafeteria. Now, what's crazy about this isn't the fact you can just go to the Bulworth cafeteria and just start throwing food around. It's that other students join in. And it's such a little thing, but Rockstar knew that if you put up food in a cafeteria setting, someone would throw the food. So they made it so that something interesting would happen if you did. All you have to do is go into the cafeteria, pick up a fruit, and start chucking, and almost immediately everyone else just starts doing it too. And number 4 in GTA 5, if you customize a car of large amount, random NPCs will compliment you on it and want to take pictures with it. Having a sweet ride is proof of how far you've come in GTA 5, and this little detail is just another way that Rockstar makes the world feel more alive by having its NPCs react to you in subtle ways. If you really tricked out a car and you park it, passing people will comment on how good it looks, similar to how people comment on how you looked in San Andreas. They even stop to take pictures of your car if it's impressive enough. It's a small little detail, but adds a lot to the game, makes it feel more alive. And number 3 in GTA 5, shooting gas tanks causes them to leak. Another cool little detail from GTA 5 is that you manage to puncture a car's gas tank, it leaks gas. In a lot of games, shooting a gas tank just makes the car blow up. But this is a bit more realistic, so when the gas tank's punctured, it just leaks a trail of gasoline. It's not just an effect that appears on the ground either. You can hang a car halfway off a ledge and you'll see gas actually pouring out of the gas tank rather than just instantly hitting the ground. It's a small detail that's crazy and nobody would really notice unless you looked closely. So here's where it does get dangerous, because if the car backfires, it'll light things on fire. So in that situation, it's pretty dangerous in terms of having a trail of gasoline behind you. Just more realistic than other games. And number 2 in Max Payne 3, the improvised silencer gets slowly more broken the more you shoot it. In the 12th chapter of Max Payne 3, there's a short cutscene where Max makes a DIY silencer using a plastic bottle. Considering this is an over-the-shoulder game, you don't really get a good look at the silencer most of the time, so it's easy to assume that the model never changes. But if you look closely enough, you can see there's actual multiple versions of the silencer that show up in increasingly damaged states depending on how many times you fired it. For most games, you would just have an unbroken and then a broken version of the model, but it's Rockstar, so there's no less than 4 different variations of this one model that most people probably are never even going to see. And finally, in RDR2, if you wear a mask in Armadillo, people think it's because of cholera. The little details in this game are endless, but this one's really wild, both for being so detailed and so incredibly small and unnecessary. In most towns, people are suspicious of you just walk around wearing a mask. But in Armadillo, opinions are a little different. Instead of the usual lines you get anywhere else, people say stuff like, the mask only helps so much, and assume you're wearing the mask to avoid getting cholera. It's actually particularly interesting in the context of the last couple of years of our lives. It's an easy-to-miss background detail that Armadillo recently suffered a cholera outbreak, and that's why there's the big bonfire outside of town. The only way you could even know this is from background details like NPC dialogue, posters, and newspaper articles, and it doesn't really have any part in the story. It's crazy enough that they put this elaborate backstory into the town, but it doesn't even matter, but they also added this specific detail that if you wear a mask, people around town actually have unique dialogue for it. The level of detail in this game is next level, but it's also what we come to expect from Rockstar Games. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications so you don't miss any, and we thank you very much for watching this one. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.
What can give you a competitive edge in today's red-hot housing market? Rocket Camp. Go to rocketmortgage.com.
Rocket. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org. Number 3030.
begins that requires the player to rush to any nearby computer in the level and send information to their handler to avoid being compromised. A much more forgiving design than the instant fail triggers in version 1. Another interesting exclusive mechanic to UB Montreal's version is the way the JBA headquarter missions are handled. In Shanghai's version of the game, players are made to feel more like they're snooping around the offices, with a forced walking stance and a lack of standard tools like night vision goggles. This added a very interesting and unique feel to the experience, unlike anything else in the franchise, along with more time to better establish the various characters. However, Montreal's version of the game doesn't incorporate the system quite the same way. These JBA headquarter missions handled just like most covert missions, with Sam equipped with his night vision goggles and various non-lethal weapons to infiltrate the facilities. You can even grab and interrogate JBA members, including Head of Security Carson Moss. If a player is caught sneaking around the facility, a special surrender cinematic plays, just like in the next-gen version. Only, instead of being forced to reload from a checkpoint, you can perform a QuickTime event to neutralize the threat. Then there's the level designs. While the names of the levels appear the same, these levels are all completely different from the PC and Xbox 360. For one thing, most of the levels in the old-gen versions take place at night, just like the classic titles, offering far more shadow-stalking gameplay. While this feels more like Chaos Theory at first, the actual designs of the environments are lackluster. None of the levels are interesting to explore, as they're typically just bland industrial hallways. Unique to Double Agent version 2 are expanded cooperative interactions with various characters, including Agent Hamza in the Iceland level, and Enrica during the train heist. Generally, these interactions involve boosting the NPC onto a higher ledge so that they can open a new path for you, and it makes the player feel more like they're part of a team than in version 1. This feature makes sense, as version 2 of Double Agent is also the only version to feature a multiplayer cooperative mode. Just like Chaos Theory, 2 players can team up and sneak through a few missions that run parallel to the events of the single-player campaign. In addition to this, Double Agent Old Gen also features an exclusive Spy vs. Spy mode. This mode is one of the more strange multiplayer modes in the series, as it completely scrapped the idea of the first-person mercenary in favor of a bunch of nimble spies jumping around shooting each other. This mode is also interesting, because it seems to incorporate UB Annecy's newly refined spy controls from the next-gen version, and the assets used in the old Chaos Theory and Pandora multiplayer. A lot of the sound effects, game logic, and animations are blended together to make this mode possible, but it feels more like an old-school deathmatch mode, rather than the unique cat-and-mouse style of the past games. Stealth doesn't play nearly as big a role, and instead the focus is on quick movement and platforming techniques. Visually, Double Agent on Old Gen doesn't hold up as well. The PS2 and GameCube versions of the game somehow look worse than Chaos Theory did on those respective platforms, mainly because the environments in Double Agent just aren't as interesting to look at. They might be more challenging and interesting to play, but they're just a series of dark hallways with occasional staircases, laser tripwires, and cameras. The cruise ship, one of the more aesthetically pleasing looking missions in the new gen version, is also reduced to mainly dimly lit hallways, with the bare minimum included to sell the idea that you're on a cruise ship. Assuming you still have a working Xbox or 360 lying around, the best possible version of this game is arguably the original Xbox title, which features the best possible visuals of the old gen build, along with the classic stealth action that fans love from Chaos Theory. Though this is a still hotly debated topic, as many players prefer the undercover secret agent concept more properly employed in the next-gen version. No matter which version you prefer, Double Agent's legacy was greatly tainted by later fan criticism, and Ubisoft had already begun drafting a complete rework of the franchise's core mechanics.
We gotta keep the hands safe.
Move on to that, I want to briefly mention Montreal's portable side